Welcome to the Power Book 3 Raising Kanan recap. At a young age, Kanan was bullied. Once his mother, Raquel Thomas, heard of it, they got their get back. Years passed and Kanan is now a teenager. At school, he rolls with Laverne or Jukebox, his cousin, and Sean Figueroa, but people call him famous. He has been fiending over Davina Harrison. She has a boyfriend named Buck, who was put on by Unique, also known as Neek, the biggest drug dealer in the South Side. Rack is the head of all operations, surrounded by Lulu and Marvin, the father of Jukebox. Rack wants Kanan to live a straight and narrow life and leave the streets, sending him to take a test, but he fails on purpose. Noticing Neek's men dealing on Rack's corner, Kanan and D-Wiz shoot up the block, killing Buck 20, not knowing that Rack had given them permission. Jukebox was missing, having fun with her girlfriend Nicole, a rich Upper East Side student. Meanwhile, Rack is trying to expand roots and goes to meet with Hugo when her girlfriend Tony tries to dismiss her as ghetto and not wanting stepped on blow. They retaliate by cooking her dog in a microwave, and Rack's house is shot up by Neek's people. Detective Howard is the lead detective on their case. She tries to make amends with Neek and is forced to forfeit all their corners. Rack knows he flunked the test on purpose and accepts him into the street life. Kanan is tricked into staying at the stash house with Scrappy, leaving to talk with Davina. They set up a new stash house with Juliana and Gabriel Ayaka's store, giving them all the corners. Neek called off all her soldiers, but Buck's people still want some revenge, telling her that the streets need a body if they want to keep Kanan safe. Leaving to go on a date with Symphony, the bartender at Tony's club, she tells him to stay home and invite D-Wiz over. Intercepted by Lulu, he takes him to a club to have fun, but executes him at the end of the day, tipping off the ops about his bounty. Outside the club, Marvin meets with soldiers that want to join up. When people start getting too frisky on Tony, Marvin and them are forced to step in. They all get arrested. Dean is both Neek's and Rack's plug. After commiserating, she buys information on Neek's next drop from Dean's bodyguard, telling Howard the police to meet them at the drop-off and confiscate everything. Symphony and Rack have been hitting it off, and Kanan convinces Marvin to let him sell some blow, and he makes his first few sales, helping Davina and getting a kiss. Meanwhile, Duke's hustle is robbing clothes and selling them. Marvin sleeps with Tony, but immediately bounces after. They begin to move work over to the new stash house store. Scrappy is stuck at home having diarrhea, so Marvin persuades Kanan to help as training in the streets. Prior to this, Neek was tipped off by Davina and waits for them outside. When Marvin leaves to put half of it in the store, this is when they break in and rob the rest of it. Marvin speeds back and forces them to leave a guy behind, who he executes. She enrolls him into an after-school college class where he is the teacher. Symphony. At home, Rack finds the bloody shirt. Rack dismisses the shirt and screams at both Kanan and Marvin. They move into two new apartments, one on top of each other. If one place gets raided, they can just send the work down. Scrappy flips to Neek's team after Kanan falsely accuses him of snitching. They are both arrested by Detective Howard, who finds out that he has melanoma, bone cancer, and without any immediate family, there's a high chance he will die. Symphony picks up Kanan from the station and promises not to tell Rack about his arrest. Rack teaches Kanan to cook rocks, and Detective Howard now knows that he is Kanan's father. Duke is kicked out after Nicole's mother found them kissing. They lose their connect Dean after he found out Rack was buying information. She asks Juliana for help with a cousin that has affiliations with the cartel. Rack breaks up with Symphony for keeping secrets. Neek sends Scrappy on a hit at a venue that Famous and Duke are playing at. When he tips off Lou, they trap him, dumping his body in front of Rack's house. Scrappy is dropped off at the front of the hospital. He lost an eye and a kidney. Rack and Symphony rekindled their relationship. Davina breaks it off after hearing Buck's death riddled in Famous' song. Kanan forces the crew to mix some new Cynthia powder into the mix. All the crackheads die from it. Nicole's first and last puff too, leaving Duke waiting outside the bar for her. Rack tries to make new connections with Joaquin, Juliana's cousin, and warning Kanan not to trust the lying cops, especially Howard. Rack helps assassinate Gabriel, the abusive husband, and Juliana thanks her for this. Howard discovers the bodies, and little Rob snitches on Kanan. Howard hints at letting the streets know that Kanan is a cop's boy, and admitting that he knows about all the bodies. Rack kicks Marvin out of the game for the crackhead bodies, blaming him for not protecting Kanan and concealing the fact that he knew about the bodies. Duke and Kanan attend Nicole's funeral, but is immediately removed. Leaving Kanan, Duke breaks into their house and reminisces Nicole's memories, getting arrested but released because Detective Howard called it in. Similarly, Kanan finds out Davina got evicted. Hearing from a neighbor, Child Services came and took her after her mother was identified as dead. Neek takes all the crackhead bodies as Rack's idea because all her supply was drying up. They hit Lulu's place and Marvin arrives in time to get him out. Lulu heals up in the hospital alone while Marvin takes out Lil Rob, and Rack invites him back to the crew. Marvin realizes that Duke is a lesbian, and when she arrives home, he beats her. Neek rile up his people to murder anyone associated to Rack. She convinces Kanan to shoot Detective Howard. Kanan discards of the gun and Scrappy picks him up. The detective's shooting has started a commotion where police pull over everyone. He discards of the unique jacket that he was wearing during the shooting to Marvin, which plants it back in his room, and Unique is arrested. Symphony takes Kanan out of town during when Duke returns home. Marvin gets arrested for drug warrants and spots Tony inside the precinct as an informant. Lou wakes up and so does Detective Howard. A cop transferred him blood, saving him from Maloma. Several months have passed and the streets have cooled off. Rack retrieves Kanan. Marvin is forced to take an anger management class for his drug charges. The apartments are now connected from the top floor all the way to the bottom. They've been paying off all the residents and inspectors. They are the bosses of the Southside drug game. Lulu has been slipping. They execute Scrappy because he lied to them about being arrested. They recruit Worrell, Neek's previous right-hand man and the person that firebombed Lou's place. Howard has woken up and decided to take it onto his own hands and inform Kanan that he is actually his son. Knowing that Rack is going to lie to him, Kanan starts to question her, but is reassured that Howard is crazy from the shots that he took. Duke and Marvin don't talk anymore, and she reaches out to her mother Kenya. Famous got kicked out for having prostitutes over, so they sell stolen crack for money. Crown wants Lo out of the music game, allowing her to clean the money through his label, and Rack agrees. Neek got released from prison. His whereabouts were accounted for at the time of the shooting. He robs Juliana and forces them to leave his family alone. Jukebox hangs out with her mother Kenya at her church choir troupe. Kanan starts to believe that Howard is potentially his father. Rack tries to expand into Jersey, but it is owned by Sal Baselli. He robs their load twice. Crown helps Famous get an apartment where Kanan meets Corinne and her mother Paloma. Howard's partner Burke continues to search for clues on his case as he lost all his memories due to the shooting. Finding out that he has a son, their beef is absolved when Rack convinces Neek to step in as the middleman. They owe him a favor and now he will be their boss in Jersey. Crown starts to disrespect Lou in front of all the producers, beating him in the garage for this. Finding out that he wanted to orchestrate a plan to kick him off his own label, he chokes him to death with a cable. When the new signee Zisa walks in and she helps him hide the body. As a soldier in training, Kanan is made to deliver the cash. He is robbed by Freddy and his gang of thugs. Armed by Paloma, they get their get back and beat Freddy half to death. Police are hot on their tail and arrest Famous for it. The family leave him to rot, forcing Howard to help him out. Despite Nicole's mother Linda blaming Duke for Nicole's death, Nicole's father James appreciated her. Duke made Nicole happy and they are getting a divorce because of it. Symphony moves out of town. Jamaican loan sharks come looking for Crown, harassing Lou for the money. Marvin finishes his anger management class and his teacher Renee Timmons gives him her number, warning Duke that Kenya left for a reason. They try to indoctrinate her after finding out that she was dating Nicole. Marvin immediately cuts it off. Howard informs Rack that Scrappy wasn't a snitch, it was actually his mother. Marvin recruits Marco and Dominique for a hit on Tony. When they break in, they kill Tony, but don't account for her boyfriend. Long story short, Marco is shot and the boyfriend makes it out alive, and Dominic too. They hold a funeral for Marco, who's actually Sal Baselli's son. They execute Dominic for this and request that Rack dispose of Marvin. She chose not to. Kanan has lost trust in his mother as he found the paternity test of his blood to Howard's and chooses to move into Famous's place. Howard relays the information to the captain about Burke digging up his old information and undercover work, getting her a warning. When Marvin meets up with Renee, Sal's guys catch him lacking and Renee passes away. They get revenge when Lo kills Timmy the shooter. Sal calls for backup. Despite Neek having a turbulent past with Rack, he doesn't snitch on her to Sal. Famous is about to get evicted and he tries to rob Freddy, but he doesn't budge. It turns sour when he shoots him to death. Sal arrives in the south side and Rack checks in to find that Sal isn't getting the cavalry he called. Without any money, Kanan is forced to steal some crack. They deal on the corners where Burke arrests them and question him on Howard being his father and Rack being 16 when she was an informant. He assaults her and runs off. Laverne beats a boy that snitched on her. to Kenya about being a lesbian, getting her sent to jail, where she is released by Burke. For this, Duke reminds her to watch her back. The streets heat up after Marvin and Lou hit the Italians first. They retaliate by destroying their apartment operation, injuring Worrell and hitting Marvin with a bullet. Lou gets hit at his studio, where Zisa is killed. Rack is shot at her home, where Kenya is killed. She is wounded but saved by Nick, as Howard and Kanan arrive on the scene to get more answers. This is where the series ends. For another questionable ending, watch this.